If you're holding on to more than you need, what does that mean at the community or the societal level? If we have, this hoarding tendency to keep more than we need, out of our own sense of safety, then that might have an effect on others around us. And how can we redistribute these resources in a more equitable way?
Welcome to Chakra Savvy. I'm Jessica Goulding, and today I'm excited to bring on an old friend named Erin Mursch, and she is here. Her company is called Organized for Good. We did a combined event several years ago called Making Space, where we brought together yoga and the KonMari method of organization. And since we're on the topic of one's own abode and chakra two and energy, I thought let's have a conversation with Erin and check in on her opinion on these things. So welcome, Erin.
Thank you, Jess. It's so good to see you.
Yeah, good. Would you please give a little introduction to yourself for our listeners?
Sure. So as you said, my name's Erin. I'm here in Austin, and I started my professional organizing business back in 2016. So I've been at this 9 years. I just had a calendar alert come up on my phone this week that it's been 9 years. And I trained with Marie Kondo that same year, got certified in her approach to tidying up, as she calls it, sparking joy in homes. And I use that approach to decluttering along with, I guess, standard professional organizing protocols to help people clear out what is kind of holding them back and set up systems to make their lives calmer, easier, more pleasant, more pleasurable, and make their space really support the life that they want to live. So that's what I do.
It's so amazing because how I see what we do is similar is that, in the chakras, we're working with our own energy. We're working with the chakras as a framework of self-study and transformation and how we can kind of access different energies in ourselves and different parts of ourselves to create the change and the life that we want to lead. And I see you doing the same thing with someone's space. So I'm curious to know how you see one's kind of energetic connection to their space or their material things, or how their material life kind of reflects their interior. Do you see a lot of that? I'd love to
Yes.
hear how you see the
I
energy of the room with the stuff.
Yeah. Well, I love this question, and I love some of your phrasing, how you talk about self-study. I see that in the KonMari method of decluttering, especially. I think that your stuff really is a reflection of you. It's a collection of all of your experiences, little pieces and aspects of your identity and your close relationships in your life. And so very much when you look around your space, I'm sure you see little stories of your past and maybe hopes for your future and aspirations for yourself or your lifestyle. So all of that is present in your space. So it very much is energetic work by kind of taking inventory of what you have and really choosing with intention, like what still has a place and what maybe has served me in the past, but I can let it go. Or what was I maybe at one point hoping for in my future, and now I've kind of taken a different path, and that no longer feels like it aligns with me or what I want or my spirit or my energy. And so asking yourself all of those questions just to arrive at what's right for you, because there's no one size fits all of like what you need or how you need to have your stuff organized in a certain way. It's really, I meet people where they are and really listen to what they're telling me and take observations from what I'm seeing in their space.
Yeah.
And yeah, that self-study, it's really part of it. It's a reflective, introspective process. And yeah, I love that. It's an energetic work and kind of tying to feng shui, which is not, I'm not a expert or practitioner necessarily, but I think there's elements of uh feng shui in seeing your stuff as blocking energy or potentially guiding energy. And I find that really interesting. And always the first step of applying feng shui concepts in your home is to declutter because all of that stuck stuff is what clogs the energy of a space.
Okay, so that, yeah, you're getting into like the grunties of a space, the
Yes.
energetic blocks in a space. And I've often wondered, I've got some things piled up in a corner. Now, the corner is serving a purpose because the bolster fits there perfectly. And yet I'm like, but is that okay to just have this bolster stuck in the corner? Like if you came in my room, would you want me to change that? Or do you think if it's working, it works?
I think if it's working, it works. Again, I'm not, a feng shui expert, so they might have a different opinion, but I really look to you. Like, how is that affecting you? How do you feel when you see that in the corner? Do you think, it's kind of bothering me there? Then yeah, I would say that's like a negative thing and you should probably make an adjustment. But if it feels good, it's serving its purpose, it's working, then, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
There you go. I think we can look at ourselves like that too. If like if things are going okay in my life, it's going to require a little less self-study. However, I think we're always doing things both consciously and unconsciously. And so when we're putting our space together, we can do it consciously or we can just do it consciously. Like when my mom is still in the childhood house I grew up in, and we moved in there in 1986, I think. And she was kind of in a rush to put everything in the drawers in the kitchen. Still, to this day, you go there and like, why is the hammer in this drawer in the island next to the potato peeler? And she's like, well, that's where I put it, and because that's where it goes. But we know it is a chaotic kind of craziness if you're just coming in trying to find something. But for
Mhm.
her, it makes sense, but it came in like chaos. So if somebody feels like their space is like, well, it's set and I know where things are, but really it's not, what if it's not working? Like
Yeah.
you're setting things up, but something's not working.
Yeah. Especially in the kitchen, I like to ask these questions. Like, let's take everything out of this drawer. Let's see what's here. And let's see what you use in this space and what is just being stored in this space. Now, a kitchen is generally a high traffic zone. It's where a lot of things happen. And I would say that's probably not an ideal spot to keep in hammer. If you have a giant kitchen with plenty of storage and you've got a whole utility area of one side of your kitchen and that's where things are stored and that works for you, great. But if it's mixed in with your cooking utensils, that's probably not going to be the most efficient and like calming. And, it's not going to bring you zen when you're cooking and you're looking for a ladle and you reach for a hammer.
Yes, and you've hit on another energetic note because chakra 2 is one's own abode, and it's where we exist. It's like your own womb, the womb of your life, the womb of your room, the room of your personality. We have all these different kind of realms of our being. And if something's a little chaotic or it's out of place, then it can kind of well, like you said, it ruins the zen. It takes away the
Mhm.
forward motion. Things aren't going to work as well.
Yeah.
And so you would recommend just dump out that drawer. Like, let's just see
Mhm.
what we have here.
Yeah. And while you're in there, see how many spatulas you have and which ones you actually use and enjoy using. Because duplicate items are another thing where it's just like if you've got too much of something, that's also taking up unnecessary space and um, clogging energy, right? In a way.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
In yoga, you could call that a aparigraha, like you're clinging to too many things. So
Yeah.
actually, aparigraha is the non-clinging. So it's the releasing of things that you don't. If you have two and you need one, or you have five and you need two, well, then you're kind of holding on to material that's unnecessary. So it's going to bog down essentially chakra 1, your material self. You're going to get kind of bogged down.
There's a heaviness to that.
There's a heaviness, yeah, and we want to have that lightness so that our energy can rise up the Shoshana, up the channel towards enlightenment. Because if you're dealing with your material world constantly because it's not in order, how are you going to have a chance to sit and pray? How are you going to have a chance to connect with your highest self if things are a mess? But some people really like a lot of stuff around them. That's okay, right?
That's okay. And I think there's connections to your history. If you grew up in an environment that, was very full and very chaotic, that's your comfort. That's what you knew of as your womb, right? So you might gravitate towards that. If you've got some trauma in your background, if there's an experience in the past, even generations back of poverty or refugee kind of experience, then that may have been passed down. This idea that for your own safety, you need to cling to more. But I think to speak to kind of that spiritual practice of lightening your sense of your being, um, it might be healing to let go of some of that. Now, you might need a little extra support if that's your background, and that's where you might call in a professional organizer or work with a therapist or something. But yeah, I think that's a really good point. It's like you can't really experience that sense of, I won't say you can't experience enlightenment because I don't know what that's like, but to be weighed down by these earthly possessions, I think is doing a disservice to perhaps your spiritual self. And what I'd also like to say, with regards to if you're holding on to more than you need, what does that mean at the community or the societal level? If we have, this hoarding tendency to keep more than we need, out of our own sense of safety, then that might have an effect on others around us. And how can we redistribute these resources in a more equitable way? And that's part of, my mission in Organized for Good too, is helping individuals to create their space. And then what can we do with these resources that feels good to let it go and to put it to use somewhere else in the community? I think that's another key component, is like it will benefit yourself, but it could also benefit others. And how good does that feel?
Well, you're kind of making me feel like everything we have has its own energy, even these material pieces, and when Marie Kondo talks about, belongings that spark joy, but also I remember her talking, and I probably got this from you, that your socks don't want to be balled up together because it
Yeah.
stretches and pulls and things. And so frankly, I don't even sort my socks. Like that is my drawer of chaos. And I don't care if they match when I wear them. That's like my little rebellion against the organized life, but it's kind of organized. But
That brings you joy, it sounds like.
well, it does. It's like, it's like my little secret that my socks don't match. And I'll always know that. Uh, but now I'm not wearing matching socks. But when I think though of my socks not wanting to be balled up like that, it brings out from my heart a sense of reverence.
Hmm.
And with the fewer things we have, the more we can have this sense of revering. And reverence goes with awe and wonder. And these are the more upper chakras kind of aspects of the spiritual realm of like, life is so big and amazing. Even these socks have a little opinion. Now,
Yes.
if you are racked with guilt, which is the shadow chakra too, this might not be the practice for you because you're down with too much. Like, don't worry about your socks. But if you have the space for it, maybe just I think we can all practice reverence. And in yoga we talk a lot, or working with the space of a room, I'm sure that you might want a spot that is just your own little creative zone, your own altar space, your own space for, your higher things. Have you ever helped someone put together a puja or an altar?
Yeah, I have actually. Well, cleared a space to create that. I wasn't involved in the selecting the sacred objects to place there, but certainly clearing the zone because that was their intention. They wanted to cultivate more of a practice, whether it's for yoga, meditation, just sitting, journaling, having a cup of tea in peace in the morning. And I think that's a really important thing, to have a sacred space that you can come to and immediately feel at ease and ready to connect with that higher self. Because if you're surrounded with stuff like, shin guards or, little dinosaur toys, like you're not going to be able to tap in as easily to that side of yourself. I'm not saying it's not possible, but you will have to work harder to like kind of shut down like your sensory perception, whereas if you have the calm space created, it's easier to tap in, I think.
Yeah, it's like as within, so without.
Yeah.
So if your room is cluttered, likely your mind and spirit, your inner energy is too. And
Hmm.
some people get kind of stuck in feeling like, especially now, I'm hearing people just talk about like they're feeling like they can't they're a little bit frozen, right? And just feeling like there's lots of bombarding inward coming news. There's lots of conflict in the world. There's conflict in our country. There's conflict in neighborhoods. There's conflict in families. And we have constantly incoming information, just being in the information age, being in the digital world. So what this can do is kind of shut us down. And then the things in our room and our space, they accumulate because we don't have the energy to just like go ahead and file that thing. They pile up. And I'm speaking from experience. Like I recently undid my undid my files. And I feel great. This is how big my pile is now. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
So just a little brag. Oh, it's a podcast. So anyway, it's like this big, it's tiny. But if someone is feeling this kind of weightedness and they know they would like to get things moving forward, and maybe it's hard to kind of get things moving in the spiritual realm, or they're having trouble getting on their mat or sitting to meditate because there's too much clutter, what would you suggest might be the first step in addressing the space that then might go to the inner abode? So outer to inner abode.
Yeah, I think a good place to start would be clearing a surface, and you can decide what that surface is. Maybe it's your kitchen island, and just clearing that off, putting things away, identifying what you need to hold on to and what has already served its purpose, what is kind of out of place, put it in order. You can start there, and that might set off the energy. Like I find this practice very energizing. I realize that may not be true for everyone, but I do think like once you start with something small, it kind of sets off this motion. You're like, oh, that feels good. And like, you're strengthening these decision making muscles about like what you need and what you want and all of that. So then you might move on to a different area. I was saying too, like a junk drawer is a great place to start because there's not a lot of high value stuff generally in a junk drawer. And you might find something that's been missing for a while. Once you throw out the soy sauce packets and extra chopsticks, you might find a check that you haven't cashed or the set of keys that have been missing or, something like that. So that can be really energizing as well because you're getting these little rewards, these little, I guess, dopamine hits, which is what, we generally are scrolling and doing like mindless consumption to get those little hits.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that would be a hit. And that happened to me just the other day. I was cleaning out something and I found 25 bucks and I'm like, well,
Score.
there's some abundance right there.
Yes.
So good. So start small, clear a surface and see how you feel.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's similar to yoga. Like if you don't have time to do 10 minutes of yoga, do five, do two,
Hmm.
just see, set a timer.
I
See.
have another tip too. You know how they say if your house is flooding, like first you got to turn off the tap?
Oh
Like
yeah.
like have you heard that?
No.
So if you're surrounded by stuff, really take a look at what's incoming. Do you have like subscription boxes that are coming month after month and you never use the stuff? Or do you buy things online because it's easy or because it's on sale, but then ultimately they don't change anything for you. They don't add value to your life. I would take a look at those things as well to kind of stop the incoming if you're in that overwhelmed, stuck state and you're not really sure where to start. That would be like a good turn off the tap. Make it.
I love that. That's actually very empowering.
Mhm.
Yeah, like that is doing something that's going to stop, well, it stops the bleeding. Like it stops the incoming so
Yeah.
that you can take a breath.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, just kind of catching up for a moment. Something you mentioned earlier, when we're releasing our extra stuff, then, it's releasing those materials to be available.
Mhm.
One thing that I really love about Organized for Good is your clothing swaps and things like that.
Yes.
Do you still do those?
I haven't had one in a while. I had one last year with a friend and it was wonderful. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's been so long. With COVID and everything, I kind of stopped and I had a child during COVID too, 3.5 years ago. But oh my gosh, I love clothing swaps so much because it really does prove to you that if you let something go, it makes space for something else to come in. And you can go through your closet and kind of choose the things that maybe never fit quite right, or the color wasn't quite right for you, or whatever the case may be. And then you find someone else who loves it, and you're like, oh, that's so rewarding to see them like choose the thing that you didn't need anymore. And then you find something else. It's just this beautiful energetic exchange. So yeah, I'm such a fan of that. I love it.
And anybody can do that anytime, with your stuff, with your clothes, with anything. It's really, I see that as like chakra 1 and 2, bringing your material, letting it go, and then bringing in what will support you, or don't bring anything home. Like you can always have the option of just leaving all the stuff there and enjoying the releasing of your things.
Yes.
So
Yes.
beautiful. Gosh, this is so inspiring. It makes me want to keep going. Um, and I'm hoping that, other people listening will understand moving the material and the spirit will follow, or move your spirit and maybe the material will get going,
Yes.
either way. I think it
Yeah.
goes both ways. Do you have
Yeah.
any examples of someone who came to you for maybe a little bit of home transformation, home organization, and then it like bled out into their life in a surprising way? And I know I'm putting you on the spot, and maybe you haven't even heard, maybe people don't give you feedback in that way. But
Sometimes I do hear about like amazing things that happened. And I'll give one example. I'm not sure if this is exactly what you're asking for, but you can tell me if I'm close. So I worked with this woman to clear out her pantry. She had two kids and a husband, and the pantry had not been cleaned out in a while. And while we were working together, she had been telling me that she's been having some GI issues and that she's been changing her diet. And so that was part of the clean out too, is like get rid of these things that are not serving her system. And so there's room for the gluten-free items or whatever special dietary things that she needed. So we finished doing it. It's probably a 4-hour project or something where we're taking everything out, we're, composting, and we're, putting into different packages and organizing. And a couple days later, she reached out and she said, Erin, this is probably too much information, but I need you to know that I had been experiencing constipation for several days before we worked together. And after we worked together, I had this big release. And I was like, oh, wow. So, like, it's true. Like, it physically, like, helped her, I guess, let go of whatever her body was trying to cling to. Or I don't know, maybe it was, the dietary changes as well. But I like to think that it was like the energetic, like, release of all this stuff that was not serving her system well. And she just kind of got a fresh start after that.
that's exactly what I'm thinking. That makes complete sense. You start
Mhm.
releasing in one area and your system goes, "Oh, is that what we're doing now?"
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like, okay,
Like
time.
we're
Yep.
always in
I don't,
constant communication with our inner body, our outer body, spirit, nature, nurture, all of it. We're all in touch with all of it. So I think that is a perfect example. And I know that it's true.
yeah.
So yeah, well, wonderful. Where can we find you, hire you, support you, learn more? I know on Instagram for a while you were doing some really fun videos of like how to pack, how to do these. Like that was so fun to watch.
That's
And
such good feedback because it was, it's a lot of work to do all the social media stuff. And I took a break for a while and people are like, oh, where have you been? I'm like, I need to get back at it. But yes, you can find me on Instagram at organized for good ATX. And my website is organized for good ATX. I'm here doing local, in-person organizing, unpacking after a move, decluttering and downsizing, of course. I work in storage units and closets and all the spaces in the home. So whatever you need, I'm here to support you. I've got free phone consultation button on my website too.
awesome. Have you ever worked remotely? Like somebody comes in and brings you, or is it really a hands-on kind of thing?
It's usually hands-on. In COVID, I did some like group programs online. It was kind of like a support group. We're all working on this together, and that was kind of fun. And I've done a little bit of one-on-one virtual coaching, but I really like to get my hands on
Hands
and
in
being in someone's space. I feel like I'm of the highest service. But I'll meet you where you're at. If somebody has a need and they're not in Austin and they just want to connect, like reach out.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm picturing all kinds of people looking at their own abode and going, I'd like to have a sacred space here and
Mhm.
just someone to walk alongside of us. Sometimes that's all we want is just
Yes.
a witness to our work, a witness to our space, a witness to our life. and
Yeah.
somebody to bounce our energetic questions off of. And I think you'd be a real valuable asset in that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm going to throw in there at the end, at the end of our conversation here as well, an invitation to you and to everyone to come to the new moon intention setting session. This is February 27th, and I'll do them every new moon. So if you're listening to this later, just catch the next one. They're free. There's things that I'm offering right now. And so it'll be 5 o'clock Central. But you can catch the replay if you join the community. So I've created a community called Chakra Savvy Community. And this is where I'll put the link to the replay. So it's not a public thing because people are doing some sharing. People, I'm inviting everyone in to do this intention setting around one's own abode. So we can look around at our environment. The Pisces energy is creative and artistic. We have chakra 2, the abode, letting go. And I think it'll be a great chance in this kind of winter to do a little bit of preparing for the spring cleaning.
I love it. That's beautiful, Jess. Thank you for the invite.
Yeah, yeah. And you were agreeing with me earlier that setting your intention on the new moon or like doing the cluttering on the new moon. What were you saying about decluttering in the new moon and the
Well,
lunar?
I think new moons are great to initiate something. So if you're setting a new intention, it's perfect. And if that involves decluttering, like that's a great starting and then kind of finishing at the full moon. So you're doing the release at the full moon and the beginning at the new moon. Yeah. So I agree with your lunar cycle, how you're setting it up. And I love
So,
the Pisces
oh,
energy.
and then on the full moon, I'm going to check in with the community and see who's doing it. So we'll have a little bit of accountability. Oh, maybe
Yeah.
you let me come up with this month's challenge. There's a challenge.
Okay.
Oh, that'll be fun. Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you wanted our listeners to know or to understand about organizing and being in their space?
Well, something came to mind when you were talking about your socks and the reverence, and I'm not going to try to encourage you to fold your socks, but I what I really love about the practice, especially of KonMari, it's bringing gratitude to your things and expressing that gratitude as you take care of your things. So you talk about revering your socks by not stretching them out and balling them up together. You can do the same thing as you're, washing your dishes or you're, folding your son's laundry. Or maybe you don't fold your son's laundry. I do because he's 3.5. But
Well, one day you won't.
one day I won't, and I'm
Well, he
looking
will
forward
be
to
the
that.
best little folder we know.
But the energy with which you do that is put into the objects, right? So if I'm folding his pants and I'm like, oh, the leg's stuck in and I'm frustrated, that energy of frustration is then going into the object. But if I can find the gratitude, like, oh, these pants are, they're not going to fit that much longer and they cover his chubby little legs or whatever, like is going through my mind and my heart as I'm organizing or putting things away, that is exuding energy into your space. So it's being present with that and being intentional about that too.
Wow, that I get. So I've heard of this practice, when you're wrapping a gift, like really giving gratitude and thinking about the person and infuse that energy. But what if our laundry looked like an opportunity to connect, not something that we have to do? It's like getting into the get to do, not have to do,
Yeah.
that we
Yeah.
are lucky enough to have clothes to fold and a dryer to dry them. And if we are multitasking or looking at it like a big old headache, I believe you that that energy begets that energy. Not
Yeah.
only does it go into the belongings, but it's at least seeped into your system. And that's what you're that so
That's
that's
the
the lens for which you're looking at the world,
yes.
is a lens of frustration. So this is very zen, to do the practice of washing the dishes and doing it with presence, reverence, gratitude.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that is a beautiful place to end this conversation. And I'm full of gratitude for your coming and talking to us about this, but also a reminder of how the chores and the cleaning out, it's not something that we have to struggle with, but it's something we get to engage with
Mhm.
as a way of self-study, transformation, and optimally deeper connection. So thank you for this time.
Yes. Thank you for inviting me. This has been a pleasure.
And we will check you out at Organized for Good ATX.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Erin.